there, this is Leanne Jung from University of Kentucky. Today we'll be talking about writing smart outcomes for IFSPs and developing strategies for those IFSPs that fit within the natural context of children's daily routines and activities. What follows is a voiced-over PowerPoint that will guide you through two acronyms for writing outcomes and writing strategies. I'll leave you with examples in the end of family priorities and concerns that lead to family outcomes rather than child behavioral outcomes. There are several prompts within the PowerPoint that ask you to stop and consider the example or practice writing the example. So today we're going to learn to develop routines-based outcomes for infants and toddlers, for IFSPs, and to develop strategies that support those outcomes within the context of natural learning opportunities and routines. Kind of an older way of deciding outcomes is one in which the team takes the lowest items missed on an assessment instrument and chooses those, translates those into outcomes. That doesn't really make a lot of sense, particularly since we usually use traditional assessment instruments to do this. As Bronfenbrenner tells us, traditional assessment is the strange behavior of children in strange situations with strange adults for the briefest possible periods of time. Now, while traditional assessment certainly has a purpose in helping us decide if a child is eligible, in helping us learn about a child's progress, in learning about development so that we can share that information with families, going straight from traditional assessment to IFSP outcome is not an appropriate use of traditional assessment. Rather, we should take functional assessment information, so information not only on tasks on an instrument, but the skills that are underlying those tasks and how a child is functioning within daily routines. Those things together can tell us what's important for the child to be able to do next, to be able to function as well as possible in natural routines. And that's where our outcomes come from. All right, now let's talk about writing outcomes. When we write outcomes, one thing to remember is that jargon can be intimidating. Jargon, of course, is relative. What's jargon for one family may not be jargon for another family. Also, what may be jargon to a family when they enter early intervention may no longer be jargon once they transition from early intervention. One way you can determine if you're using jargon is to share a report or an IFSP that you've written with someone who's not in the field and see if they can understand it, see if they can identify anything in your reports or IFSPs that is jargon. Next, we want to remember that outcomes should focus on what's really important. Shouldn't be discipline-driven outcomes. It shouldn't look like PT goals, OT goals, DI goals, speech goals. It should look like family goals, things that are important to families or child care providers to a child's functioning within daily activities and routines. And on the same token, we should address skills, not tasks. It doesn't matter if a child ever blows bubbles or gets a ring by pulling on a string. What matters is that we address skills within the context of routines. And one way we can do this is by making them smart. Admittedly, I've ripped this off from the business community, this acronym, but I've changed it a bit to make it fit for early intervention. The S in SMART stands for specific. We want to know, is it clear to everyone exactly what we're talking about? What exactly is the behavior? We're going to give some examples in a minute that'll make this very clear. Measurable. If you went to school in special ed, you likely learned that a measurable outcome was 3 out of 4 trials on 4 consecutive data days. And while that's true, we can make it measurable in early intervention and yet make it family-centered. And the question that we ask when we want to know if it's measurable is, will it be obvious to everyone on the team when this is met? What are the criteria and under what conditions? Sometimes a number helps make something measurable, and sometimes adding a number doesn't make it any more measurable, and sometimes we can be just as measurable with words. Is this an attainable outcome? Is it something that we can expect to have happen in the next 4 to 6 months? Many times families come to the IFSP meeting with an idea of an outcome, but they don't typically word them in measurable, attainable sorts of ways. What we do is say that's a great outcome. You want your child to begin talking and using words at mealtime to say what she wants. Then we can turn to the people in the team who might be supporting that and say, what do we think that we can expect to happen in the next 4 to 6 months towards that outcome? So that's where the provider's expertise on development comes together with the family's routine and the family's priorities. The R in SMART stands for relevant. Okay, is this outcome SMART? Spencer's communication will improve within 6 months. After each of these examples, pause the video so that you can think about whether it's SMART or not, and we'll do the same for the routine strategies before you hear the discussion. So go ahead and pause now. Okay, this outcome is not SMART. Communication is not specific. 6 months, that's a nice number there, but it does not make this measurable. We don't know if it's attainable because we don't know what we're talking about. Okay, go ahead and pause this one. Maisie will receive speech therapy twice a week for an hour is not even an outcome. This is a service. Okay, pause this one. This one is SMART. Before the next review, Kendall will be able to sit in the bath without support each night. It's clear exactly what behavior we're talking about. Sitting in the bath. We know what conditions, without support, and we know what the criterion is each night. This is one of those sort of things that has to be 100% of the time. You can't be able to sit independently some of the time. You got to be able to sit all of the time. So each night is appropriate. And there are no numbers there, but it's measurable, it's attainable, obviously relevant, and I'm betting tied to a priority. Okay, go ahead and pause this one. All right, hopefully you decided this one was not SMART. The 3-piece form board certainly is not a relevant task. It's a task, not a skill. It certainly is specific and measurable, probably attainable, but it is not relevant and hopefully not tied to a priority.